Hello Internet. Since Universal announced their plans to reboot their stable of classic monsters and the little opinion piece I did the other day that you can check out about that, I've been thinking about different versions of these monsters, and of course because your Draculas and your Frankensteins are all in the public domain, it's not just Universal that's had a stab at them. So I've been thinking about revisiting a now 20-year-old Frankenstein movie that followed on from the success of the Francis Ford Coppola version of Dracula, which was a stonking success, and I personally believe as each year goes past gets more and more appreciation. I love this film. It's got its faults. Keanu, more than just Keanu. It's got its faults, but I love this movie. But a couple of years later, Francis Coppola and James V. Hart, who wrote the script for this, decided to produce a sister project, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And this one has been received a lot less favourably at time of release and since. I don't remember too much about it. I remember really digging De Niro's performance in it, but come on, it's got Robert De Niro, it's got Kenneth Branagh who directed, it's co-scripted by Frank Darabont, who was behind bringing The Walking Dead to the TV, amongst other things. How bad can it really be? So almost, 20 years in November since it was released, let's revisit it and see if time has been kind to it, or if it really is the overblown mess that everyone said it was at the time. Let's dig in. Okay, we're just shy of 50 minutes in and the creature's just been brought to life. The film as a whole is just shy of 2 hours long, and it's a mixed bag so far, and I think the runtime is to the detriment of the film, to be honest. The film sold itself, one of its great virtues, it sold itself as being the most faithful adaptation of Mary Shelley's book. And whilst I think that that is an admirable endeavour, it is bogging the movie down. Some of the things work really well, some of the things don't work so well. One of the things that I absolutely love is the inclusion of Aidan Quinn's character at the start to bookend the movie, Captain Walton, I think, who is on a polar expedition and threatening the lives of his crew. He has the same obsession as Victor Frankenstein. The way the book's laid out, it's in layers. You start off with Walton's story and his obsession and his mission to get to the North Pole, and while he's there and iced in and after there are casualties, he meets Victor, and then Victor comes on board and tells him his story. So we peel back the next layer of the story, and it's Victor's story and his childhood and his growing up and his mother dying and his studies and his ultimate creation. And then when he meets the creature again, the creature then tells his story. So you peel back another layer and get to the heart of the story. It's like an onion. It's a wonderful structure for the book. Could have been a wonderful structure for the film, but in the drive to include absolutely everything, it loses all kinds of focus. Right at the start, the film opens with a voiceover from the words of Mary Shelley herself, describing what she intended for the book. And what she intended it to be and how to be taken. So we get Mary Shelley's own words right at the start of the movie, but then move to an opening crawl of script explaining the context of the North Pole expedition we're about to see. So a voiceover explaining one aspect, then moving straight into a text crawl explaining another aspect, unfortunately does highlight where this film at the moment is all over the place, because once Victor gets on board and then says I'll tell you my story, then the film starts to really drag, because we see young Victor with his family and his adoptive sister Elizabeth being brought in as a child. So she's his adoptive sister stroke girlfriend, and we have a scene where Victor's mum comes to meet him and tells him that he's always got his head in a book and he's always so earnest and scholarly, and he should go outside and enjoy life more. And then later on, when she dies, Elizabeth comes and tells him pretty much exactly the same thing. So we've got a good 10 or 15 minutes of characters telling us what Victor is and what he should be doing and the lessons he should be learning, which are all fairly moot. Beyond establishing his relationship with Elizabeth and the fact that his mother dying in childbirth is one of the formative experiences of his young life, leading him onto his journey, we don't really need all of this, because then about 20 minutes in, once he gets to university in Ingolstadt and starts his studies, the film really picks up again, because rather than everyone telling Victor what he is and what he should do, we actually start seeing Victor doing things, doing his studies, chasing down his obsessions, butting heads with one of the professors at the university who thinks that his lines of thought are not only illegal but immoral, finding favour with another one of the professors whose studies are in similar realms to him. And then we get some life in the movie. It starts to come alive as Victor's character comes alive. As a strange little aside, because once he gets to the university, there's him, Kenneth Branagh. The professor he butts heads against with is Robert Hardy, and the professor who sort of dabbles in the same area as him is John Cleese. It seems for a little while like a weird alternate reality Hogwarts, peopled by established British actors. Obviously Hogwarts wasn't around when this film was made, but time has passed and there's a weird Harry Potter Hammer. If Hammer had made a Harry Potter film, it would be like this section of the movie. John Cleese's character as Professor Waldman, who has been studying these what are considered immoral, ungodly, occult studies, does a really nice turn here. He's really cast against type, and he gives a really dark, stripped back performance, which I would have liked to have seen more from him, to be perfectly honest, rather than the abominable Q stand-in he became in some of the later Pierce Brosnan Bond movies. So a mixed bag. I would have trimmed maybe 10 minutes out of this movie at least. I wouldn't have. I'd have done away with the opening scroll altogether. Let's just stick us straight on the ship. We don't need to be spoken down to. We'll pick it up. Aidan Quinn plays the captain, obsessed and driven, so we know he's obsessed and driven. So when Victor tells him his cautionary tale, we'll understand why all of that's happening. So in a rush to get everything in the book into the movie, unfortunately the first half has been dragged down. It could have been tightened up a whole lot more, but nice little touch. Robert De Niro, who will be our creature, has already had a cameo as one of the townsfolk who is being inoculated against cholera and actually kills the John Cleese character, and as a result is hung. So we get to see one of the parts of the creature as a different character. He's an Irish character, and it's a very short amount of screen time, but De Niro does a really good job there. And now we're about to see him as the creature. The birthing scene is, yes, it's overblown, and Ken Branagh's running around topless and all oiled up, and do you know what? I don't mind that. There's a really weird scene once the creature comes to life, because he's birthed in amniotic fluid, so when all of that spills out and Frankenstein's trying to get him to stand, and the creature's naked and he's half naked, and they're rolling around in essentially a massive pool of KY jelly. I really dug that. It's not something we've seen before. It's a version of the creature's birth that we've never seen before. one of the main negative aspects of this film, which is dragging the entire film down, is the score. It's appalling. It's signposting what we should be feeling rather than accentuating what's happening on screen. There's dancing music for when they're dancing, happy music for when they're happy, sad music for when they're sad, ominous music for when he goes and rents the room and sees the room that he's going to turn into his laboratory. The music's go boom, 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 boom. This is going to be the laboratory that he creates the creature. Don't talk to me like that. Do you know what? If someone could do an alternate score for this movie, I actually think it would instantly raise this movie a couple of notches in people's estimations. When movie works amazingly well, it heightens a film. Jaws, I know I go on about Jaws a lot, but Star Wars 2001, when a film score is... Danny Elfman's Batman score for in 1989 for the Tim Burton Batman movie really amps up what we're seeing on screen, reflects it and complements it. When it's just commenting on it and giving us cliff notes to what we should be feeling, it grinds everything to a halt. If I could watch this film without the score, if there was an audio option to completely strip the score out, I even think then it would be more enjoyable. So we're about halfway through. Now the creature's around, so let's see if that loss of focus, now if we can precision in on the story it's trying to tell, and hopefully the second half will be much improved. The second half of the movie is much better. It's a hell of a lot more focused, mainly because it's the creature's story, and for me that was always the meat of Mary Shelley's story anyway. So let's talk about the creature. Let's talk aesthetically first, and the absolutely phenomenal makeup job, because the makeup and the look of the creature evolves over time. When he's born, his scars and his wounds are red and raw, and the stitching is very prominent, and then slowly over time that rawness heals, his scars actually start to heal. There's a wonderful scene where as he's learning his first word, he's obviously his scars are itching, and he actually pulls out some of the stitching that's come loose, and even further on in the film, the scars they're older scars now, so different makeup. So just some fantastic work going on there. And underneath the makeup, or through the makeup, with the makeup, however you want to play that, Robert De Niro's presentation of the creature is absolutely spot on. He's obviously taken the source text to heart, and he helps this movie. De Niro really helps this movie. His elements have a heart and a soul that just isn't there in the more histrionic and soap opera-ish elements of Victor's life and Victor's story. So from being born to going out into the streets and being beaten, the people of Ingolstadt believe that he, given his appearance, is actually the person that's responsible for spreading the cholera plague, so he gets beaten and driven out of town, and then finds himself sort of secretly living with a family out in the forest where he helps them. He learns to read, learns to speak, comes into contact with the blind man in the hut. You probably remember it from the Boris Karloff James Whale movie. All of that's there and wonderful, and the way De Niro moves, going from not being used to this stitched together body to finally sort of being the master of it, a body that's stronger than us and stronger than our human bodies. The way he speaks, the way he learns to speak, and at first not using plosives or the hard sounding consonants, I believe I read somewhere a long time ago for this section of the movie where he has speech but not a great vocabulary and he's not very articulate. I believe he spent quite a lot of time with stroke victims and also people with cleft palates, and sort of modelled his speech patterns around them, avoiding certain sounds because you can't make certain sounds. The work De Niro puts in is phenomenal. This is very much the creature from the book. We are supposed to empathise with the creature. Although the creature does horrible things, he's an abandoned child, but more so with the themes in the book. He is a creation that has been abandoned by his God, who knows nothing about the world. He's never even named. So his heights of compassion and then the need for companionship are equally matched by the depth and breadth of the rage he feels and wants to enact on his creator, his father, who's abandoned him. It's not all plain sailing. The movie as a whole is patchy. Strangely, I think it's patchy, like I said in the earlier part, with its strict adherence to the book. Now, whilst, like I mentioned, it's admirable, the written word is a completely different storytelling medium to television, to music, to opera, to cinema. So slavishly recreating the book from start to finish is not going to translate well into a well-told cinematic story. I was lucky enough in 2011 to go to the National Theatre and watch Danny Boyle's Frankenstein, which starred Benedict Cumberbatch and Johnny Lee Miller. And one of the great strengths of that play was that it actually started with the birthing scene, and then we followed the creature through his trials, tribulations, education, harsh education, and we really learnt through him learning where his place in the world is. I mean, these are the only questions he wants, you know. Why was I brought into this world? Why did you abandon me? What's my place in the world? And he learns, we learn about Victor almost as the creature does. I would have loved for this film to have done that. Just junk all of the Victor as a young child stuff. Completely eject that out of the airlock. And have us learn maybe about Victor as the creature does, and his disappointments with him. The problem in a film of focusing on Victor in the same way the book does is that Victor's essentially a self-absorbed prick, and he's not a very interesting character. He doesn't really learn that much. He's punished for his follies because he displays hubris and he doesn't repent of his sins. Whereas the creature's character arc or character journey is much, much more interesting. So when Hammer decided to have their stabs at the Frankenstein story, I think very cannily decided to make Victor Frankenstein a very delicious, very nasty anti-hero, the real villain of the piece. So because we're going to be spending a lot of time with him, let's make him interesting. And so you get the wonderful Peter Cushing performances. Here's Victor Frankenstein. The Hammer's Victor Frankenstein is nothing like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And their creatures are nothing like Mary Shelley's creatures. This is a wonderful embodiment of Mary Shelley's creature, but the rest of her story, whilst strong in prose form, is not strong directly translated to the cinema. So, I don't know. Maybe for me, maybe they wouldn't have ever been able to win for me. I realise that I'm saying that trying to do a faithful adaptation of the book is admirable and at the same time ultimately doomed to failure. It's not a horrible film. It's a film that could be fixed, most definitely. There are some gems in there. I would suggest, if you don't want to sit through the whole 2 hours, watch the first 5 minutes with Aidan Quinn to get the setup that gets paid off at the end, then skip forward 20 minutes into the movie and start where Victor goes to university. You'll miss nothing that you won't thematically pick up in any other scenes. I'm really glad I watched it again. It's not as awful as everyone says. It's nowhere near as great as it could have been, and it's absolutely nowhere near on a par with its sister film of Bram Stoker's Dracula. The score still pissed me off all the way through it, and thinking about the wonderful score for Bram Stoker's Dracula, what an opportunity. What could have been this movie? What could have been? But you get one of the most compelling portrayals of Frankenstein's creation, I think, we've ever seen in the cinema. And things like Penny Dreadful coming through now, and Danny Boyle's Frankenstein at the National Theatre. This version of the creature, Mary Shelley's version, of the sympathetic creature, but also the educated, reasoning, philosophizing creature, the well-read creature, the educated creature, is something that we're moving towards now. All the screen representations seem to be of that ilk, rather than the Boris Karloff type of creature, which has its place, and Karloff is an absolute master at that, an absolute master at conveying sympathy and empathy for a creature that doesn't have language. So I'm tipping my hat to Karloff, don't get me wrong. But this version of the creature from 20 years ago was really blazing a trail, and we're seeing many more similar iterations now, and De Niro's performance is something well worth checking out. It's just unfortunate that the rest of the packaging around it is a little hammy, a little shouty, and a little overblown and overwrought. If they could have tightened it up, we could have had something special. But there is stuff in there worth watching. It's just not top shelf. So there we go. 20 years have passed, and it's a curiosity. It's an interesting curiosity. Hell, Robert De Niro plays Frankenstein's creature. Boom, there you go, sold. If anyone's not interested in seeing that, then I don't know what to tell you.